Representatives introducing the Iranian Terror Prevention Act. On the Patriot Mobile Newsmaker line right now is our good friend from Florida, the great Congressman Greg Steube. Congressman, good to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, well, let's just jump into this. What will this Prevention Act do?
Well, it'll take all of these Shia militia, Iranian-backed proxy groups and put them on the FTO list, which is the Foreign Terrorist Organization list. And the consequences for that is it makes it unlawful internationally to provide material support or resources to anybody that is designated as a foreign terrorist organization. The Houthis, which are included in this bill, the Houthis were designated under the Trump administration. And of course, as soon as Joe Biden got elected, he took them off the list, which allows them to get currency and money and training and advice and documentations and weapons and all of this from anywhere in the world. If they get this designation, that anybody that does business with us cannot provide any of that currency, weapons, facilities, explosives, personnel, transportation to any of these organizations. So it's a really big designation internationally because it allows us as the United States to use our power and our ability internationally to cut off the financing and support of these different organizations. And it just tells you a lot that Trump had the Houthis on, and the moment Biden gets there, he puts them back, he takes them off, allowing them to get all of the money from all of these different organizations and to commit terror across our world.
And we're talking about groups that have attacked the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad a number of times, along with our troops in Iraq.
Yeah, I'd read to you the organizations, but I'm not good with Arabic, so I would probably mispronounce what they are. But if they go to our website, they can see the different organizations. But they're all owned or controlled by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Unbelievable.
So these are all extremist Muslim terrorist groups that their mission in life is to go after Israel, to go after the United States. And they use weapons and attack our troops. These organizations that have attacked our troops over the last year now, since we've had all this tension in the Middle East because of Joe Biden's weakness.
And glad to see the Republican Study Committee signing on to this as well. That's very good news. You know, Congressman, I want to get your take on whatever is about to happen today with this funding for Ukraine and Israel. There are a lot of very upset people over on the House Freedom Caucus side. Where do you stand on this foreign aid package?
I'm one of those that are extremely frustrated. I'm extremely disappointed. Not only are we going to give another $60 billion to Ukraine after we've given them $112 billion, which is more money that we've given Afghanistan in the 20 years that we were there, or spent in Afghanistan while we were there. There's no pay for. Like we're not even putting a mechanism in place to pay for an additional $100 billion at a time where we are $34 trillion in debt. We are spending $2.5 trillion more a year than we're taking in. So we're running a $2.5 trillion deficit. We're economically in a very challenged circumstance, and we're going to give money to Ukraine. The people I've talked to in my district think that that's a horrible idea. I've filed bills and done amendments on transparency. The White House absolutely doesn't want any transparency on the money that is going to Ukraine. We have reports of $40 million being stolen by generals in Ukraine. I met with some German parliament individuals who said they gave weapons to Ukraine and they were showing up in Brussels. That there's all of this corruption that is being evidenced. And I'm simply asking for transparency on the money that we have spent. There's zero strategic plan from this White House as to what we are doing in Ukraine. Why would we give them more money without a plan? I was a military guy. I served in the military. I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. We always had a mission, purpose, and an objective. Like, why are we doing what we are doing, and what is our objective when we hit whatever objective it is? And there's no leadership or strategy coming out of the White House as to what we're doing in Ukraine. What are we doing in Ukraine other than handing them blank checks with zero oversight whatsoever as to where the money goes, depleting our own ammos and weapons systems in the current state of the world, not on top of what's happening with Israel and Israel being attacked by Iran. All of this is because of the decisions that this administration have made to open up and relieve sanctions on Iran and open up billions of dollars of revenue to them. It's very frustrating as a former military guy that served to see the state of our country and the state of our world.
Well,
so I will not be voting for Ukraine aid. And right now the Rules Committee is discussing the bill. We don't even know if it's going to pass the Rules Committee.
Well, and this is what's crazy about it. When you look at the Israeli funding, and this is clearly all about Ukraine. I mean, when you look at this, $61 billion, and then you look at what they're
2/3 of it,
right, and then you've got $9 billion going to Gaza. It looks to me, Congressman, like we're going to be funding both sides of the war over there now.
And Biden did just that right before Hamas invaded Israel. So I believe it was September, the Biden administration, through Secretary Blinken, sent a check for $250 or $300 million to the Palestinian Authority in the form of humanitarian aid. And we all know that the Palestinian Authority is run by Hamas. And then a month later, they're invading Israel, I can guarantee you, using the resources and the money that Americans have spent. So you've got the White House sending money to Gaza in the form of humanitarian aid that's being used in this war. You've got them opening up and doing relief sanctions on the Iranians, which is opening up billions of dollars for the Iranians to use money to attack our allies and to attack our personnel. And now we're going to just be sending blank checks to not only Israel, but also to Ukraine and also to Taiwan. Where did Taiwan come in all of this? There's I think it's 18 or $10 billion to Taiwan. All of a sudden now we're going to just throw billions of dollars into Taiwan, again, when we are economically not in a position to be able to not pay for these dollars. So we're going to borrow from China to then spend $100 billion to give it to the Ukrainians. It just doesn't make any sense.
I love what MTG, I mean, you love her, hate her, whatever, folks, but she introduced multiple amendments to the Ukraine aid bill, which would divert funding to support the victims of East Palestine, Ohio, and Maui, Hawaii. You know, it seems we seem to forget that there are plenty of Americans suffering and in need of aid and help here in America, Congressman.
Yeah, I have a disaster relief bill. My district was decimated by Hurricane Ian. I've been working on that disaster. It's a disaster tax relief bill. So if you had expenses as it related to Hurricane Ian, and I amended it so that the folks in Ohio that had the train derailment, the folks in Maui that had the wildfires, the folks in California that had the wildfires would be able to at least deduct the expenses from their taxes. And it is stuck in the process. It passed in a committee bill in the tax package, and it now sits in the Senate. And the rumor is, from what I'm hearing, is the tax package is dead in the Senate. So a great example of where we're helping Ukrainians, people in Taiwan, people in Israel, before we're helping people in our own country who are American taxpayers, citizens who have been decimated by a natural disaster. That's why, I mean, it's very frustrating to be up here and to try to fight for your district and to try to bring things back for your district, and then you're faced with these type of bills that seem to be the priority, only because they're the priority of the Democrats, and suddenly it's the priority of this House for some reason.
So is there anything at all that the Speaker of the House can do to stop any of this? Anything at all?
Yeah, you could just say no. I mean, if I was Speaker for the day, I would use the appropriations process to accomplish our policy objectives, which is what Kevin McCarthy and the leadership told us when we went into the majority. We have the purse strings. The founders of our Constitution gave the House the ability to appropriate money. You say, hey, Joe Biden, you're not getting any money for this open border. We're going to shut down certain segments of the government if you don't shut down the border. You're not going to get money for Ukraine until you shut down the border. You're not going to get money for Ukraine until you pass this relief for people affected by a natural disaster. You can use that process, which is what was so frustrating in this last appropriations bill that passed. We took up what the Senate had passed. For the first time in the history of our country, you had a Republican speaker allowing a bill to pass that he voted for that allowed for late-term abortion, that allowed for LGBTQ transition centers, was all in this bill. If you go to my...
Oh, I know. We've been talking about it, Congressman.
There's a whole list of things. And so that's how you can accomplish goals, is using the power of the purse. And we're not doing that. And it's extremely frustrating for... there was a majority of the majority that voted against that bill. There was 112 Republicans that voted against that minibus, that spending bill, this last time. So you have the majority of the majority saying no, yet all of the Democrats with the minority of Republicans voting to pass these pieces of legislation.
Any idea why Mike Johnson is doing this? Why he's not saying no? Are you guys getting any answers?
I don't know specifically, but I believe that they are so afraid to shut down the government. And his argument is, well, the Democrats have the Senate and the Democrats have the White House, so this is the best we can do. No, it's not the best we can do. We need to be bold, and we need to stand with the American people, especially on the border. I mean, that's an 80% political issue. Even Democrats and independents will tell you that what's happening on the border is un-American. It's not good for our country, that it's going against the safety and security of the American people. I mean, in that minibus, the last one we voted on was $400 million to Jordan for their border. But we are not going to do funding for the border wall or for the safety and security of the American people. We're going to give $400 million to the country of Jordan for their border security, but not to this country.
Wow.
I don't know how, as a Republican, you could vote for that.
I hear you. Well, Congressman, we've gone over our time here. Really appreciate you coming on the show, and thanks for fighting the good fight up there.
Anytime.